she accidentally gave the patient the wrong medication and her license was pulled. She was actually charged for homicide, and they did charge her.
Before we get started with our episode, we're going to hear from our sponsors. Hey guys, quick question. How's your sock drawer looking lately? Is it a little questionable? Bombas just dropped a new line of tees, undergarments, and socks to help you get your drawer a little bit more organized while also doing a bit of good. For those that weren't aware, Bombas has a one purchased, one donated mission. What that means is for every item that you buy from them, they turn around and donate clothing items to people in need. So get comfy this spring and give back with Bombas. Head over to bombas.com/Rebecca and use code Rebecca for 20% off on your first purchase. Hey guys, I think most of y'all would agree with me when I say you can only really express your true self with your closest friends. My friends know me inside and out, and because of that, I can share anything with them. But friendships, like anything else, can be kind of hard to keep up with when life gets crazy. It can be schools, chores, jobs, or even when a best friend moves and has to change schools. Luckily, Instagram is here to save the day because they allow me to create close friends lists that allow me to send stories to just my besties. Like, maybe it's a funny meme that I found while scrolling, or maybe it's that photo I took while I was ugly crying during that sappy rom-com. I love being able to share that easily with just close friends to give them a laugh. There's a saying that goes, "It's just the little things," and I swear it's still true. Because thanks to Instagram, I can share that everyday ridiculousness with my close friends. Support for today's episode comes from Hadley. Listen, my ladies will know, okay? When you get home after a long day, there is nothing that you get more excited for than to take your uncomfortable bra off. Well, Hadley is revolutionizing the bra game. Hadley's bras feature supportive bonding that completely eliminates the need for uncomfortable wires. Treat yourself to the best bras on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/Rebecca. Free the pain and discomfort, but keep the support with Honeylove. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Hadley, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have like a specific way that that you want to be introduced to everybody?
No, it didn't matter. I just go by Nurse Hadley online, and yeah.
This is Nurse Hadley, my new friend. I met her in New Orleans, and I was just immediately obsessed with her.
I'm obsessed with you. I mean, that immediately.
So you're a nurse.
I
am.
You're
specifically a hospice nurse.
Yes.
I would love to hear a little bit about how you decided you wanted to become a nurse and how you specifically found this particular field and like how you fell in love with it.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people go into nursing because it's like, oh, I've had that calling since I was a kid. I got pregnant at 19, obviously unplanned. And I basically had to be like, okay, like being a writer, a journalist is not going to cut it. And so I need to do a career that I can make good money relatively shortly. And nursing does fit that bill in many ways. And
really?
There's so much flexibility, so many different kind of schedules you can choose. And most people make about $50,000 out of it. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I like totally believe that that was what was meant to be and where I'm meant to be. So I became a nurse. It took me about 3 years. And from there, I was an intern in the hospital. And then I was on night shift for a year and was not working with childcare to do that. So I said, I need to switch to day shift. And all they had was the nursing home to be a manager. So I did that. And that's where I saw hospice for the first time. And I'm like running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to take care of 40 patients. And I would watch hospice nurses come in and sit one-on-one. And I was just overwhelmed and was like, whatever kind of nursing that is, that's what I want to be doing. And I completely believe it was meant to be. And that's where I'm meant to be.
I love that. So like for those that, there are a lot of people that just have never experienced hospice care, never had a loved one go into it. So like, what exactly is hospice and hospice care?
Yeah, so hospice is whenever a patient has a terminal illness, like cancer is what we normally will think of, or Alzheimer's disease or heart disease. They're not pursuing aggressive treatment like chemotherapy or surgery, and we've determined that they have 6 months or less to live, doctors do, without any of those treatments. So we come into their home, and instead of having to call 911 or go in and out of the hospital, they call us. We're on call 24/7, and we will come there and we'll keep them comfortable is our goal.
So do they come to you or do you go to them? Or are there other, or like how does that look?
Yeah, we go to them wherever they are. So sometimes their home is like a nursing home.
Right.
Sometimes
Okay.
their home is an assisted living. Occasionally we have people in like hospice houses or the hospital. But mainly it's in people's homes.
Interesting. Okay. Sorry, my mind is kind of like I didn't even think about that. So like do you work for a hospital or is it like a private practice kind of thing? Like what are the options for that?
There's a ton of different options. I personally work for a family-run nonprofit, which is my favorite. It's
I
small.
love
Yeah, I love
that.
it. Yeah.
Interesting. So to become like a specific hospice nurse, do you need to have any other kinds of licenses or qualifications or anything like that after getting your nurse's license?
You can. It's not necessary. And to get the CHPN is what it's called, which is a Certified Hospice Palliative Care Nurse. You have had to work as a hospice nurse for at least a year. So getting into it, you don't need anything specific. I never recommend new nurses do it because you're by yourself in the home. And so like, for example, the first year that I did the hospital, if I was like, okay, I think that their lungs sound weird, I'm not really sure what it is, I had a nurse down the hallway that I could come double check for me. And you don't have that when you're alone in someone's home. So that's why I don't recommend it for new nurses. But
That makes sense.
like a year out, I think it's good if that's what you want to do. I want to see more younger nurses in hospice. A lot of people tend to think it's like a end of your career thing, and I don't believe it should be.
Why do they think that?
I think it's just the stigma of it, if it's like not as fast paced as like the OR, the ER, but it's just a different kind of difficult. And I want more younger people to go into it.
What do you think is the most difficult part about being a hospice nurse?
I'd say the most difficult part is like not the fun answer, but it's the staffing issues. I think that that's such a big issue for most nursing professions, but it's very difficult whenever you don't have enough staff and you know that people need to be cared for, and feeling like I'm running myself thin, and just because I know that these patients need to be cared for.
So do you think that there are any like common misconceptions about either just being a nurse or being specifically a hospice nurse that the general public just does not understand?
Yeah, a big one is everyone thinks hospice is for like the last week of life, when in reality it's supposed to be 6 months or less. And our goal is to get as close to that 6 months as possible, so that like an ideal situation is I go in, I get to know the patient, like they're pretty stable, and I'm coming in just a couple times a week, so that whenever we do get into a crisis situation, I'm not going in and meeting someone. I'm not doing admission paperwork. I'm just like, okay, we discussed this. We plan for this. I've already taught you what to do, like the caregiver, the family member. And that's a really ideal situation where I'm not trying to meet someone and they're in like a pain crisis, for example. So that takes a couple months beforehand.
So I know that death in the body can be very unpredictable. Like I know I told you a little bit in New Orleans that I have a great aunt who has dementia and who has been admitted to hospice. And I remember they admitted her in May of that year, and they told, hey, just warning, like we don't believe that she will make it past July. And so we all just kind of, had to come to terms with that, had to come to peace with that. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And she's kicking, let me tell you. And everyone's like, we don't really know how. And it's one of those really bittersweet feelings, because you don't want her to pass. Like you want her to be around. But at the same time, dementia's a very unforgiving illness and is a very just devastating thing to witness someone that you love go through. And so it's kind of like a bittersweet of, we don't really know what to hope for here. We're all just kind of taking it a day at a time. Like, what kind of advice do you have for other families that are experiencing similar things? Because the body can be so unpredictable.
It's definitely difficult. I would say the opposite side is whenever we have like an unexpected, as odd as that sounds, we do have unexpected deaths, and family like has not come in yet, and you have to call them and be like, oh, I'm sorry. Something that we are trying to do as a collective is that something we've noticed is that doctors will send their patients, like a primary care doctor will send their patient onto hospice. They'll say something like that, like they have a month, they have 2 months, and then they don't know what happens after that. So in their mind, probably like, okay, that's what I thought, that's what I told them. So now whenever patients do pass, I've been calling whoever referred them, like their primary care doctor, and being like, hey, this is what happened. And sometimes it is like a year later.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, wow, I'm surprised that they live that long. And sometimes we'll have a discussion about it.
Interesting. That's so interesting. Like, do you think that has to do more with like medicine or like will, like personal, internal will? Like, what do you think?
I think that sometimes we take people off a lot of medications, usually. And I think sometimes people get comfortable and pain-free and they're in their home and they're just happy and they're not so stressed out being in and out of the hospital anymore.
It takes a lot off of your body.
Yeah. And I think they sometimes do better. Actually, there was a study done not too long ago that they took 2 patients with very similar diseases, very similar trajectories, and monitored them. One did hospice, one did not. And they did this with like a bunch of different people. And on average, the people on hospice lived 22 days longer.
Wow.
Yeah, which was super interesting.
That's so interesting. The body does crazy things.
Yeah.
And I remember when it came to my great aunt, everyone kind of assumed that she was really holding out for, it was going to be her 50th wedding anniversary. And then that passed. And then, you're from New Orleans, you get this. Her sister became queen of Mardi Gras. And so we're like, and now we're like, okay, what is she waiting for now? Which again, it's just a weird double-edged sword. But someone sent me a story about how their mother was admitted to hospice. She was very ill. And she had 10 children. And so when the hospice nurse was finally like, hey, I think the end is coming, she's probably going to pass in the next few days, they tried reaching out to all 10 children to make sure, they were all in different states. There's a lot of travel involved, but they wanted to make sure that each of them could say goodbye to their mother.
Yeah.
Well, there was one son who that she has not spoken to in maybe 5 or 10 years because they were just a lot of drama. He stole a lot of money from her. They didn't even have a way to contact him. But 3 or 4 days later, after the rest of the 9 said goodbye, she's, no, I'm not leaving until I say goodbye to Paul. I have to say goodbye to Paul. So they found Paul's son's Facebook after days of searching. Finally got in contact with him. He agreed to come say goodbye. This is now a week or 2 after they originally thought she was going to pass. He came in, said goodbye. They embraced. She was barely conscious at this point because she was just so weak and not doing well. But they could tell by her face that she knew who it was and she recognized. And that night, she finally let go and passed. And I think that's just so incredible. Like, our bodies are crazy.
They are.
Like science and nature and just our natural abilities, that just wows me so much. But I want to know, like, what does a day in the life of a hospice nurse look like? Like, what are your primary responsibilities? What do you do throughout the week?
Yeah. So normally as a case manager, I work as needed now, but I do the same thing whenever I do work. So usually we have a morning meeting around 8 a.m. So the nurse who is on call, like the night shift nurse, will tell us anything that happens. So you're listening out for your patients and seeing if there's anyone that you need to go see. So like example, if someone fell, they're like, I went, they were okay. You're going to make sure to go see them first. And then you'll be assigned usually 4 or 5 patients. And so you would call everyone and say, this is kind of the hour window. I'm thinking about coming. Do you need anything? Sometimes they'll say, oh, I need more wound care supplies, or I need briefs, or whatever it is. So I usually go stop by the office and grab whatever's needed for the day and then go to my patient's houses. So you drive, I listen to an audiobook, and whenever you go in there, you're making sure they're pain-free, hearing what's happened the last few days. There's a lot of charting, of course. You take their vital signs, you talk to them. Spend a lot of time just talking to people.
I love that.
Making sure the family's okay. And then you go to the next house and do that all day. And then at 5 p.m., we have the call where we're going to tell the whole team what's needed. So, for example, just the other day, I had a patient holding on like that. And on the call, I told the social worker, I said, something's going on. Like, she is holding on for some reason. And can you talk to the family and see if there's like something unresolved that needs to happen?
Yeah.
And so that was on that call at 5 p.m. And then the on-call nurse for that night then knows anyone who's not doing well might be calling. They already have the backstory of what's going on so that someone's not calling in like a pain crisis and they're like trying to pull up the chart. They've already like, oh yeah, your nurse told me about that. In an ideal situation, I'm on my way. My current company, we have a full-time on-call nurse, which is nice. I've worked for companies before where we all rotated every third night, that we were the ones on call, and that was really rough.
Oh gosh. So how many patients will you typically have on your roster at a time?
Ideally 12 to 15. I've had up to 28.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so many.
Yeah, that was when COVID hit. We had 3 nurses and my manager and 50 patients, and my other 2 coworkers quit. And so it was me and my manager for a few months.
Wow.
It was rough.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was rough.
I cannot even, I think especially, like, obviously it's different, but I know as, like, a teacher, there's always, like, a amount of kids that really just works and that fits in the classroom and it's nicely, and it's ideally, 22, 25, but that's just so unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I think the most I had in my classroom was 43.
That's insane.
Like,
do you even know all their names?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'm impressed.
It was difficult, but I had to put some kids at my desk because there weren't even
What?
There weren't enough desks.
That's insane.
But I mean, I'm sure it's like the same thing with like
You just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just do it. You have to. You don't really have another choice. Like,
Right.
I can't even imagine 28 how you would spread all of your time in a typical work day. I mean, I'm sure you probably worked after hours too, because you just don't have a choice.
I was working like 70 hours a week.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, people don't think about it because, you're paid for whatever, and it's just, same as teaching, free overtime that you're never going to get anything from. But do you think there are any other, like, misconceptions about being specifically a hospice nurse that the general public just doesn't understand, or might accidentally make your job a little bit more difficult than it needs to be, or anything like that?
I think a lot of people think hospice is a place, and I've even been interviewed. I've even been interviewed where people like say that it's a place. It can be. I mean, there's hospice houses, and I want to open one. But hospice in general is a service.
Yeah.
So that we provide no matter where people are.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, a lot of people think that.
Like, I genuinely thought Aunt Marcia was like somewhere specific. Nope, I guess she's at her house. So you want to open a hospice house?
I do, yeah, a nonprofit one.
So what does that look like?
So there's a program called Respite that's like severely underused in the country, which is basically where someone go to like a hospice house or sometimes a nursing home will take you in so that the caregiver can get a break. So usually that's when symptoms are kind of uncontrolled and they're like, I haven't slept in 3 or 4 days. I need some help. So Medicare, which is like the primary payer of hospice in the United States, will pay for someone to go into a facility for up to 5 days.
Okay.
It's just really, really, really underused in the South where we are because we don't have any hospice houses. So they're offered a nursing home. They have a roommate. The family can only come and go during specific times. And normally it is used more towards the end of life because that's when symptoms are getting harder to manage.
Right.
And there's family members who are like, I've been taking care of my loved one at home for 3 or 4 years. I'm not going to risk not being there whenever they die.
Right.
Because I'm just a little bit tired. So they end up just refusing it. It's only used by 2% of people, which is like nothing. And so my idea is to have one where the caregivers are welcome. They're also given a break. They're given meals. They are welcome to be there and be as involved or uninvolved as they want to be. And then I want for one night for all the family members to come, friends, whoever, and do like a living funeral at that house and like do toast to life, because I've sat in so many funerals where people get up and they talk about the person, the loved one, and I'm like, gosh, my patient would have loved to hear this. Like, why am I listening to it and they didn't get to hear it? And so I want them to hear it. I think that they should be there. I think that they should get to be a part of it.
I can feel that in my chest. I love that so much. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. Hey guys, quick question. How's your sock drawer looking lately? Is it a little questionable? Maybe it's time for a little spring cleaning and refresh. Bombas just dropped a new line of tees, undergarments, and socks to help you get your drawer a a little bit more organized while also doing a bit of good. For those that weren't aware, Bombas has a one purchased, one donated mission. What that means is for every item that you buy from them, they turn around and donate clothing items to people in need. To date, Bombas has donated over 100 million clothing items and counting to people experiencing homelessness. And let's be honest, we know springtime can be a little crazy weather-wise. That's why Bombas has merino wool blend socks that naturally wicks moisture and helps regulate your temperature. Perfect for the rainy and super unpredictable spring weather. I personally love the buttery soft fabric. It makes for perfect cozy clothes on my lazy days. So get comfy this spring and give back with Bombas. Head over to bombas.com/Rebecca and use code Rebecca for 20% off on your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Rebecca and use code Rebecca at checkout. I have a bit of a problem, and I think a lot of you will understand this. I keep trying to make plans with this one friend, but we're both so busy and just have a lot going on. We both want to hang out so bad, but finding opportunities to do that has just been really difficult. It's just kind of a crazy time in both of our lives, like, you know what I mean. But luckily for us, we live in the modern world, and Instagram gives us a chance to bridge that gap between our crazy schedules. Instagram has truly been a game changer when it comes to keeping up with my friends. I love that there are so many different creative tools to express myself with. Close friends is one of my favorite features. I love how special it makes you feel when you see that green little circle and you know that whatever your friend shared is just for you or your close circle of friends. Whenever I have a free moment, I definitely use that to connect with my friends. Whether I'm scrolling on the couch at night or standing in line at the grocery store, it's in those little moments that I find myself connecting with them through Instagram. Like if I see a funny reel that reminds me of my best friends, I immediately reshare it to my close friend's story. Or if there's a song that reminds me of my friend, but it's only really gonna make sense to us, I'll reshare that with a music sticker to my close friends as well. They'll for sure get the message, and they'll know that I miss them terribly. And honestly, sometimes it's not even that deep. Sometimes I just want to share a song with them that's stuck in my head. Maybe get it stuck in theirs as well. I also use it to express myself creatively, like a lot. I'll share fun outfits and interior design ideas. I love getting their perspective on what's on my mind. And as soon as I post my close friend's story, I'm immediately getting replies. It's like I have my own little support group right there on Instagram. If I'm having a really bad day, I'll vent to them on Instagram, and all of their responses and replies instantly just put me in a much better mood. So even though I can't see all my favorite people every day like we used to when we were in school, Instagram helps me close that distance with them. Instagram's creative features make sharing so fun and easy, whether it's just a like, a share, or a post. So give it a try and share something with your close friends and make their day. Support for today's episode comes from Hadley. Listen, my ladies will know, okay? When you get home after a long day, there is nothing that you get more excited for than to take your uncomfortable bra off and just get into something more comfortable. Well, it's time to spring clean your bra drawer. Honeylove is revolutionizing the bra game. Honeylove's bras feature supportive bonding that completely eliminates the need for uncomfortable wires. Honeylove also has a huge range of sizes and caters to the diverse needs of all women. Honeylove's not just about supporting women, but empowering women. And for a limited time only, you can get Honeylove on sale. Treat yourself to the best bras on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/Rebecca. Use our exclusive link to find your perfect fit. After your purchase, when they ask you how you found them, please support our show and let them know that we sent you. Free the pain and discomfort, but keep the support with Honeylove. Hey guys, I think most of y'all would agree with me when I say you can only really express your true self with your closest friends. My friends know me inside and out, and because of that, I can share anything with them. But friendships, like anything else, can be kind of hard to keep up with when life gets crazy. It can be schools, chores, jobs, or even when a best friend moves and has to change schools. Luckily, Instagram is here to save the day because they allow me to create close friends lists that allow me to send stories to just my besties. Like, maybe it's a funny meme that I found while scrolling, or maybe it's that photo I took while I was ugly crying during that sappy rom-com. I love being able to share that easily with just close friends to give them a laugh. Of course, there are times I love sharing photos to stories with all my followers, whether it's a group photo from a birthday dinner out or a group family photo from a beach vacation. But that video of me being chased by a pigeon while at said beach, yeah, I'm gonna keep that one for just my close friends. There's a saying that goes, it's just the little things, and I swear it's still true. Because thanks to Instagram, I can share that everyday ridiculousness with my close friends. Now, back to the episode.
So do you go to all of your patients' funerals?
I try to.
Oh, that's beautiful. Is that like common in hospice nursing?
So it's going to depend on the company. My company will pay us to go, like our hourly rate.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Sometimes we're like still on call, but the nurses know, and they'll be like, okay, like I can cover Hadley. I don't have a very busy day. Like let her go to the funeral for the few hours. But occasionally you will have someone who's in a crisis and you can't go, but I try to go. And if you ever see any of my videos and I'm in my black scrubs, it's because I have a funeral that day.
Oh, that's so sweet. So then another question that I got a lot of, like, how is the caregiver of a hospice patient determined? Because I know a lot of times like a family member will volunteer, but if someone doesn't really have that luxury, what happens?
So I took care of a homeless patient who refused to go into a nursing home. We tried, which you can't force him to.
Yeah.
And so he was actually taken care of by the other people at the homeless encampment. And there was one guy who was actually like 40 years younger than him, who basically was like his person, his caregiver. I taught him how to do wound care. Like, he gave him medications. He would walk up to CVS like a mile and go get his medications for him. He'd have to walk up to the payphone and call us.
Wow. Wow. And so I don't know exactly how this works. Someone sent me another story.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand all the details, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. But someone sent me a story about how there was this man on hospice who didn't really have any family. And so this very distant cousin that lived 30 minutes away on a farm just was designated as the primary care. And he could only do so much because he was 30 minutes away. But one day, this relative just called the hospice nurse, freaking out. That's like, I need you to get over here now. I'm out of my element. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. And the nurse showed up and just immediately was just so overwhelmed by so many different aromas, so many different, like the air was hazy. Apparently this man turned on his propane tank and the stove and had an accident on the floor, and the Roomba scooped it up.
Lovely.
And so just the mix of everything was just disasters waiting to happen after disasters waiting to happen. And the caretaker said, I can't be here 24/7. I live 30 minutes away. I don't even really know this guy. We're like very distantly related. I just felt bad and didn't want no one to step up. But like, I can't do this. And so the hospice nurse then had to call social services, call the social worker, and reassign him. And I don't really know how all that works or what that means. Like, what is there, like a database of people who volunteer to be caretakers for people? Like, what does that look like? Like, what?
So usually we would try to get them into a nursing home in that situation. And if they're low income, they would qualify for Medicaid, which would pay for it. Usually it's a process though.
Okay.
And people, like family members who don't take care of their loved ones, like we can call adult protective services on them. Like they are required, just like a mom cannot just like abandon her child.
A child can't abandon their mom.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. Okay, can you elaborate on that a little bit? I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah. So if they need help, we can go into a nursing home. But yeah, like that cousin, if he was like a caregiver, he's actually probably pretty lucky. I would have called adult protective services.
Wow. And so how do you determine, like, okay, this person is responsible? Is it just if they volunteer?
They've already been doing it and they've been their caretaker? Yeah,
And
they need to like have someone take their spot. Just like how a babysitter couldn't just like walk out in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
even though they're not like the parent.
I didn't even know that was a thing. That's so interesting. I never knew that you could do that. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, okay, so we already talked about how, like, when it comes to hospice nursing, staffing is like the most difficult thing to deal with. What for you is the most difficult? And again, it's okay if it's not like a attractive answer. Like, that's okay. We want to know the realities, not just the flashy stuff. What is like on your day-to-day rotation? I can't even think the word I'm thinking of right now. The ADHD is so strong today. On your day-to-day rotation, what is like something that you dread doing? What is something like either the most difficult or just the most, gosh, I hate doing this part? Like, what is it for you?
I definitely would say, other than charting, I just hate doing it.
Yeah.
Family dynamics, I think, comes up more than people realize.
Okay.
And a lot of times, especially in the South, people will be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't think people realize that no, family is normal. There is no such thing as normal family. There is always going to be some, I joke, I'm kidding when I say this, but I always say, like, there's always one crazy person in the family, and if you think there's no one, it's you. It's very true, though.
I love that so much. Yeah.
And so there's always like that one, but I mean, people will they'll get in your face. It's a very like emotionally charged time. And sometimes they don't agree with being on a hospice. Like, sometimes the patient has said, I want to be on hospice. And then sometimes they'll try to be difficult. So they've like, for example, I just had one the other day where they had designated their daughter to be the power of attorney. The patient had said, I want to be on hospice whenever she was able to make her own decisions. She then goes into a coma, is not able to make her own decisions. Daughter becomes decision maker. And the daughter says, I don't want her on hospice. Send her to the hospital right now and get all treatment, because now she can make her own decisions, which is legal, and she can do that. And I tried to talk her and be like, look, this is what your mom wanted. This is like, that's what she wanted. She wasn't having it. And that's really difficult. That's really, really difficult to do and to be a part of. Which is why I'm like such a big advocate for like, choose someone who I have a video where I was like, okay, mom, like, we need to go over what my wishes are. And she straight up told me, she's like, Hadley, I'm not going to let you die. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she's like, no, I won't do it. And so she's not making my decisions. My dad will.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think it's important to have those conversations.
Okay. What do you think are some other important questions, like when having elder family members? Because I know my mom and her sister are starting to discuss, their mother. What are some questions that you think are important for them to ask each other?
Yeah. So the big ones are, where do you want to die? Some people want to be in assisted living or a nursing home. Others want to be at their home. Some want to be in a hospital. Do you want CPR at the end of life? And I always tell people, I think some people don't understand that CPR is bringing you back to life.
Yes.
And so a lot of people think that it's like the standard of care. So I explain to older people, like, if you were to die naturally, like if you were to go to sleep tonight and not wake up, do you want me to come in here and try to bring you back to life? And whenever I say it like that, they're like, oh, no, don't do that. So that's a big one. And then, if you do want that, what other measures do you want? Do you want a breathing tube? Do you want tube feedings? Those are all good questions to ask. So like, even though I'm young and healthy, I never want tube feeding to be put in me. That's not quality of life, in my opinion. And I know that if it were to get to a point where I did want to naturally die, or they said, she doesn't have brain activity, I would have to starve to death, essentially. And I don't want that. So I've told my dad, because my mom won't do it, don't ever put one in me.
Yeah. Interesting. And I'm thinking, I don't think my mom would either. And she's a nurse.
I don't think your mom would either.
I don't. Yeah, you met my mom. Yeah, no. But my dad is very like quality of life, like
logical.
Yeah. Like I can see when they talk about my great aunt. My mom definitely wouldn't have, but my dad, he's got me. He knows. Well, someone sent me a story about like what they hate the most, and it was so interesting seeing a lot of different opinions, because some people said that this actually brought them relief. Some people said this brought them dread. But one hospice nurse sent me a story about how she had a patient who wanted the life-saving techniques, wanted the life-saving I can't think of the word.
Measures.
Yes,
Yeah.
the life-saving measures. And so she had a patient who started going shortness of breath, clearly was in a lot of pain, went over, tried to do anything that she could, tried to give her a little bit of morphine, and the morphine just immediately, all of a sudden, laid her back down and just felt her go still and rigid and watched her turn blue. And she passed right there in her arms. And she was talking about how, you know, that's always for her, that just she has a little internal crisis every single time because she knows she's not harming them, but that she just feels a little bit of responsibility, even though that's what she's supposed to do and that's what they asked for. It just is something that she really struggles with on a daily basis. Whereas other hospice nurses have said the same exact thing, but complete opposite of, I feel like this is really helping them not suffer. Like, I feel like I'm taking that from them, and I love that. I love that I can give them that kind of service and love and care. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that correlation doesn't equal causation when it comes to morphine. I have had, especially in the South, enough people who are like, don't do morphine, do not touch morphine, absolutely not.
Really?
So I have been at enough deaths where someone never has morphine. It is no different.
Interesting.
Other than them being in pain.
No, yeah.
But as far as timeline goes, it's no different. And the fact of the matter is that we usually are giving morphine at the end of life, but they're at the end of life.
Right.
And there's been a ton of studies and articles. There is one account called How to Train Your Doctor, and he's a palliative care physician, and he did a really good in-depth video about the effects of morphine and how it cannot speed up death. He has a really good, like, anyone could understand it type of video about it. I've shared it before.
So then do you think it kind of goes back to, actually, I guess it doesn't go back to what we were talking about, because you were saying that when they're at home and they're more comfortable, they do better. So I guess it wouldn't be just the morphine making them comfortable. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we can give all different types of medications. People just have, like, morphine has this bad, like, rap. But the reason we'll give it most of the time is because you don't have to swallow it.
That makes sense.
So, like, if you're in a coma, you don't have to swallow it. I put it in their cheek, and that's how it's absorbed. But, like, before then, we can give Norco, we give fentanyl pads. We do all different types of pain medication. It's just that people have now associated morphine, and enough people who don't have experience have seen, oh, you gave morphine and then they died. But in reality, at the end of life, we can be giving morphine every 5 minutes. Like, like we're giving it, and they're gonna probably die regardless at that exact time.
Interesting.
That's why I would say correlation doesn't equal causation.
Is that fear and that stigma why people mostly in the South won't do morphine? Or is there like another reason?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so they think that it'll
hasten death. Yeah. But I don't know a single hospice nurse who would say, don't give me morphine at the end of life. Like, you better give it to me as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy. Do you think that there are, like, any other either misconceptions or ideas or any actions by people that just make your job harder than it needs to be?
I would say that there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is we do. I think a lot of people aren't prepared to be caregivers, and they think that we're going to just come in and we're going to be there 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
We do need a lot of caregiver help and assistance in this country, but in reality, we're on call for emergencies, and we'll come in a few days a week, but that's like for an hour at a time.
Right.
The majority of care is being done by caregivers, like family members. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they need to plan for that. And, you know, whenever you're thinking about it, like for yourself, like personally, I want to have enough saved up to where I can pay caregivers if I need to, but it's extremely expensive. It's an average of $30 an hour for caregivers.
Wow.
If you think about needing around the clock care, that's why most people end up in a nursing home, because most people cannot afford that.
Question. You just brought a very old story that someone sent to my other series, which was like, Am I the Bad Apple? Where someone just asked. They were a caregiver for an elderly person. I would love your opinion on it.
Sure.
There was a caregiver who basically worked with multiple different patients, worked a double, was exhausted, and then was also on call. Was called in, was told whoever answered the phone, hey, I'm letting you know I've been working for the last 24 hours. I have not slept. And they're like, well, we just need to know. Can you come in or can you not come in? We need to know right now. Like, we don't have time to wait. And she said, no, it's fine. I'll come in, but I'm just letting you know, like, I'm exhausted. So if I need some help, I'll just call. I'll let you guys know. So she went. It was an overnight shift. The patient was asleep the entire time. And towards the last hour of the shift, the caregiver fell asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And when the next person who was relieving them of that shift came in and saw this caregiver asleep,
mm-hmm.
And she claims it was only for like 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But when this person saw the caregiver asleep,
yeah,
immediately reported her.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled her license.
Yeah.
She got fired. And a lot of people were saying, like in the comments, that wasn't fair. But then a lot of other people were saying, well, if it were my family member, what if there was an emergency?
Mm-hmm.
What if something happened? So what are your thoughts on that?
So we now have a case law. This happened, I think, 3 years ago with RaDonda Vaught on this that has made it. It was terrible. It set a totally new precedent for the nursing profession, which is where a very exhausted nurse who had been called in and it was like, I'd rather someone be there than no one be there. That kind of situation. Her name is RaDonda Vaught. She accidentally gave the patient the wrong medication and they died. There are so many medication errors. She immediately admitted it. She told the doctor, she told the family, they did everything they could to save. She never tried to cover it up to save the patient. Her license was pulled. She was actually charged for homicide, and they did charge her.
They found her guilty.
Mm-hmm. She was found guilty.
Wow.
And this was a totally new thing, but what the defense kept trying to say was, well, she was just trying to help. And like her employers knew that she had worked the past 3 days and hadn't slept. And they said, as a licensed professional, it is on you to say
the job.
No. You have your own license and you should have said no. So that did set a new precedent. And I have almost been fired from a job before because I said, I worked yesterday. I was on call all night and they wanted me to work again. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And they said, well, who's going to take care of these patients? I said, that's your job. That's not my job. I'm not losing my license. I'm only in my 20s and at the time.
Yeah.
And so you can fire me, but at least I'm going to leave with my license. I'll go work somewhere else.
Yeah, as you should. And they tried to fire you over that?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And it sucks and it's scary, especially whenever you're like a newer nurse now.
Absolutely.
I'm like, whatever,
What
I'll find a new job in an hour. At the time, that is very scary. And I know it's hard, but like you can't work that hard and then just, give up your license. And at the end of the day, your license is not with your employer. It's your own. Yeah. And you should say no. You have to say no.
I think that's because I relate to that so hard with teaching because schools, hospitals, whatever it is, like will push you. And the moment you say no, the threats of the firing and the gaslighting and the finger pointing. But in reality, there's such shortage of nurses and teachers. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm like, what are you going to do? Yeah. I'm doing what's right for the kids or I'm doing what's right for my patients. And it's so crazy that these institutions are just so blinded by either not treating people right or not doing what they should do to make people want to stay or not taking care of staff so that they don't have these staffing issues. Yeah. So I've said this a few times. Did you know that after my last day teaching, they forgot to have an adult in the room? So there just was not an adult in my classroom the day after my last day. I put in my notice. And
should have called Adult Protective Services.
Literally, I was
Child Protective Services.
So my kids went and found me on Instagram.
No, they didn't.
And were sending me messages like, Ms. Rogers, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't work there anymore. They're like,
did you have to call up?
No, I literally texted my best friend at the school and I was like, can you go check on my kids?
Oh my God.
I don't know what to do. There's no adult in their classroom. So
I'm not surprised. But I should be.
Apparently one of them just started, 4 of them sent me Instagram messages and I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't work there anymore. I don't even have my school email anymore. They cut it they had already cut it that night. And so I guess one of them just started wandering the halls until they ran into an administrator just looking for an adult that wasn't physically teaching. And they were like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just looking for a grown-up, man. Like, these are 14-year-old kids.
Oh my God.
And she's like, why? And the admin were like, oh, that's a problem. And some of them got mad at me. I said, that's not Rebecca's class anymore. I don't know what you're talking about.
Crazy.
Yeah. But, like, you know, I'm sure it's the same with, like, nursing institutions and hospitals and hospice care.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's so much irresponsibility at the top that it just makes everyone else's job that much more difficult. But it's not even just the institutions. There's also people not in the profession that just do not understand.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
One woman sent me this crazy story about how she's a hospice nurse, and her mother was sent to hospice. And she, you know, was trying to be very strong, and, you know, she tried to keep friends and family updated on Facebook. And so she ended one of her posts with, I'm just so happy that I can be a part of the team to help my mother pass peacefully.
Yeah.
And I guess some people took that as, like, I'm killing my mother. And they reported her to the board for, like, bragging about ending her mom's life on social media. And it led to, like, they technically had to do a 4-month investigation into her license and figure out if there was any real harm. And literally every single stage of this investigation, the people administering it were like, we're so sorry we have to do this, but it's policy.
Yeah.
We get it. This is dumb, but we have to. And nothing was found. They ended up dropping it. They're like, your post was fine. But, like, it was people on her friends and family list on Facebook literally reported her for bragging about her mom passing just by saying, I'm so glad I can be on the team to help my mother pass peacefully.
That's crazy.
Like, wild.
It is. It really is.
And it's the same kind of people that, you know, when I was teaching and I was like, oh, I put on my notice, well, what about the kids? What do you mean? What about the kids?
Yeah.
Or when I wouldn't stay past 3 o'clock for free, well, like, that makes you a terrible teacher. Well, should you even have a teaching license? What do you mean? I'm just doing my job, man. Like, I don't know. Have you had any experiences with anything like that? Like, people just not in the profession, just really not getting it, or making it that much more difficult, or making you just want to roll your eyes?
Yes, and now I definitely was a pushover in the beginning.
I feel that.
I feel that
so hard.
And now I have a lot of new nurses ride with me, is what it's called, and I will teach them. I'm like, don't let doctors talk to you like that. Don't say no. Don't do that.
Talk crazy to you?
Yeah, they do to all nurses. That's definitely like a thing.
Oh, I hate that. That's so gross.
But this new generation, like, they're so much better. Like, they really are. Like, my nursing class and, like, above, like, we were still kind of taught to be, like, a little bit submissive, and now they're like, I'm like, okay, like, do you feel okay calling the doctor? Like, yeah, they're my coworker. They're not my boss. I'm like, that's right, girl. That is very true. And that is true. At the end of the day, they're not, occasionally doctors do own, but they're just a coworker.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Someone sent me I did something else with nurses like a long time ago, and someone actually sent me this one story that was crazy to me about how this one nurse received a prescription from a doctor, and it said Dr. Barnes. We'll just say Dr. Barnes. And she looked at it, and her gut was like, this is not the right medication.
Yeah.
And so she just refused to administer it to the patient.
Correct. Yeah.
And the doctor was like, and another nurse reported it to the doctor. And the doctor's like, oh, well, did I send that up? I guess I did, because it has my name on it. So why are you not administering it to the patient? Why are you being difficult? And, like, chastised her, berated her. And this nurse was like, this is not the right medication. This is, like, I'm sorry, I'm not giving this to a patient. That's going to be my license. That's going to be this person's life. This is not going to be the medication. I'm not doing it. And you can report me. You can threaten to fire me. You can go to our supervisors. I'm not doing it. What ended up happening is the doctor's wife also worked at the hospital, and the pharmacy got the 2 prescriptions from the Dr. Barnes mixed up.
Oh, wow.
So the doctor was wrong, and it was not the right medication. It was supposed to be the medication that his wife's patient was supposed to receive.
Crazy.
And the nurse was completely right. The doctor never addressed it, never apologized, admitted to anything. Like, that's crazy to me. Is that common?
So, like, my nursing instructors who are all now retired, I've been a nurse for almost 10 years. They grew up, or they like were new nurses whenever like surgeons would like throw chairs across the OR. Like, it used to be like so bad. But like now, like I've even seen now with like the Gen Z nurse, what we call them, like they'll like,
I love that.
They'll like say, someone was telling me the story about how they heard this Gen Z nurse, like a doctor was yelling, because they still do that. And she said, "You can call me back whenever you can talk to me like an adult." Oh my gosh.
Yes.
It's like they do a good job. Yeah. Like, I don't fear for them at all.
No. Oh my gosh. I love that. I'm a cuspy. I'm right on the edge of, I'm like the last year. Like, they can't decide if I'm Gen Z or millennial. Every website says something different. So I just claim the greatness of both.
Yeah, of course.
I should.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what else to do. But okay, so other than, checking on patients, which is obviously your primary, what you do during the week, what is the responsibility of a hospice nurse after a patient has passed?
Yeah, so we do the death visit.
Okay.
So whenever I do a death visit, we get a call. We'll go in, talk to the family, kind of hear what happened. I'll call time of death. I listen to them for 2 minutes, and then I will call the funeral home so that they can start coming. Sometimes they can take 30 minutes. Other companies can take 3 hours. And so you just sit there with the patient. We'll do postmortem care is what it's called. Sometimes we'll remove jewelry if the family would like that.
What does the postmortem care look like? Sorry.
So you just like clean them up. If they want to be put in a certain outfit, I'll do that. Remove like any like Foley catheters is what it's called. Like any kind of like medical.
Okay.
You would remove
Devices.
it. Yeah. Because the funeral home can't take that. And then tell the family, to come say what they want to say. Once the funeral home does get there, I will help transfer them onto their gurney, and then I will immediately take the sheets off and put them in the wash.
Okay.
Because occasionally there's like fluids, and I don't want the family to see it. And then I will tell the family, like, okay, this is what I'm preparing them. I'm like, this is what they're going to do next. They're going to take them out. Do you want to be in here? Do you want to say goodbye? Do you want to not watch it? And normally I know the family well, and I know if they would like, want to do it or not. Occasionally, actually had a different culture recently where the sons actually did all of that. And it was for their mom. It was really beautiful.
Oh.
They cleaned her up. They gave her a bath, and they changed her, and they transferred her. And I just told them how to do it.
That's beautiful.
It was really beautiful.
Oh, bless their hearts.
Yeah.
That must be so hard.
Yeah, it was really pretty to see that, or beautiful, like watch them take care of their mom in that way though. And then afterwards, I will, tell the family this is what happens next, which is that we'll be following up with you. If I'm close to them, I'll say, I'll be checking, like, please, let me know when the funeral is. Like, don't feel like you're like making me feel obligated to come. I want to come.
Absolutely.
So like, please tell us. And then I will send a card 2 weeks after I kind of like let the dust settle and just say, like, thank you for letting me in your home. Thank you for letting me care for your loved one. And this is what he taught me, and this is what I'm taking away. Like, I love how he loved you, and I'm using it as an example. Like, whatever it is, I'll like always find something and write that card to the family. And then occasionally I'll run into them at Walmart, or they'll friend request me on Facebook.
That's so sweet. Okay, I have a few more questions.
Yeah.
So I asked you what the most difficult part of your job is. What is your favorite part of your job?
I love getting to know people.
Okay.
I love hearing advice. I love just really like getting to have that more one-on-one. It's not just where I'm just like, I have a patient for a day and I give them medications and I make sure they're stable. Like, I get to really build a relationship with people. I get to know their dogs. I get to know their grandkids. And I love that part of it.
What's the most valuable piece of advice you've received from a patient?
That's hard, and it kind of like changes depending on what like stage of life I'm in.
Top few.
Recently, one that was really valuable to me was stop giving your life vest to people intent on drowning. And so that's one that I've been like, definitely like stop self-sabotaging for other people. I loved that one. I think about that one a lot. And that can be in my personal life. That can be in the medical field. That definitely what we talked about is very pertinent as well. And the other one that everyone loves that was in my book is Eat the Cake, which there's so many Eat the Cake tattoos. And basically I had this patient who was younger who had told me that she had spent a lot of her life just really obsessing over her looks and like her treadmills and counting calories. And she had really missed out on enjoying life because she said that she wouldn't go to the beach because she didn't like how her stomach looked, or she wouldn't do birthday dinner so that people weren't pressuring her to eat cake. And she said, I wish I would have just eaten the cake. And she ended up dying in her 40s alone because she had just not focused on these relationships.
Wow.
And I think that she would love to see how many people she's impacted.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, bless her heart. Well, do you have any words of advice for anyone who wants to specifically go into hospice care or hospice nursing?
Yeah, I say try it and do it. I think a lot of people get like very focused on like, oh, I'll lose my skills and I need to do hospital and I have to do that. And in reality, it's just a totally different set of skills that you gain. And if you don't like it, you can go back.
Yeah.
And like you can try it though if you want to. And I might not be able to put in an IV as quickly as I used to, but I can talk to families effectively and I can tell you all the different side effects of different pain medications. Like it's just a different set of skills.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's not that one is better than the other.
Do you have any other last minute ideas, thoughts, questions, concerns, or anything that you want people to know about hospice nurses?
I want people to always know that it's not giving up. Whenever you choose hospice, you, in my opinion, are choosing to prioritize yourself at the end of life, and you're choosing your own comfort. And I don't think that that's giving up anything.
No, I think it's gaining comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's like it's taking care of yourself, self-care, even at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and hope to see you all next week. Bye, my lovelies.
Hey guys, I think most of y'all would agree with me when I say you can only really express your true self with your closest friends. My friends know me inside and out, and because of that, I can share anything with them. But friendships, like anything else, can be kind of hard to keep up with when life gets crazy. It can be schools, chores, jobs, or even when a best friend moves and has to change schools. Luckily, Instagram is here to save the day because they allow me to create close friends lists that allow me to send stories to just my besties. Like, maybe it's a funny meme that I found while scrolling, or maybe it's that photo I took while I was ugly crying during that sappy rom-com. I love being able to share that easily with just close friends to give them a laugh. There's a saying that goes, it's just the little things, and I swear it's still true. Because thanks to Instagram, I can share that everyday ridiculousness with my close friends.